For 800 millennia, the stars trembled with the unceasing warfare between the Torathi Alliance and the Melvarian Compact. Entire solar systems had been reduced to cosmic dust, planets shattered like glass ornaments dropped on concrete floors. The war had begun over philosophical differences so ancient that most combatants no longer remembered the original cause, only that their ancestors had fought, and so must they. Commander Kim stood at the observation deck of the Melvarian battle cruiser, his weary eyes scanning the tactical displays. Another system lost. Another retreat. The cycle continued as it had for countless generations. "Commander, the Torathi fleet has breached our outer defenses," Lieutenant Park reported, her voice steady despite the dire news. Kim nodded grimly. "Prepare the evacuations. We'll hold them as long as possible." Meanwhile, across the battlefield, General Lee of the Torathi forces felt no triumph in his latest victory, only the hollow satisfaction of duty fulfilled. 800,000 years, and still no end in sight. Neither faction paid much attention when their long-range scouts reported a small blue-green world in an unremarkable spiral arm, where primitive bipeds had just discovered nuclear fission. Such species came and went like cosmic dust motes, hardly worth noting in the grand archives of galactic history. The Battle of Nexus Point marked the 10,000th major engagement of the current century. The Melvarian ships moved in tight formation, their silver hulls gleaming against the backdrop of stars. The Torathi fleet approached from the opposite direction, their vessels dark and angular, almost predatory in design. Kim watched the enemy ships through the view screen. He had fought in over 300 battles, yet the sight of the Torathi armada still made his heart beat faster, not from fear, but from a deep, burning hatred passed down through countless generations. "All ships report ready for combat," Park said, her fingers dancing over the control panel. "Shield integrity at maximum." Kim raised his hand. "On my mark. Engage." The space between the fleets erupted in blinding light as energy weapons discharged. Smaller fighter craft darted between the capital ships, their pilots executing maneuvers that defied conventional physics. The Melvarians fought with precision and coordination. The Torathi countered with raw power and aggression. On the Torathi command ship, General Lee observed the battle with cold calculation. "Target their flagship," he ordered. "Draw their defenses thin." His weapons officer, a veteran named Sung, nodded. "Targeting systems locked. Firing main cannons." The Torathi command ship shuddered as it unleashed a barrage of energy beams. The attack sliced through the void, striking the shields of the Melvarian vessels. Several smaller Melvarian ships exploded, their debris scattered across the battlefield. Kim held onto his command chair as his ship rocked from a near miss. "Damage report. Port shields down to 30%, Park replied. 2 escort vessels destroyed. We're losing ground, Commander." Kim's jaw tightened. "Bring the secondary batteries online. Prepare for emergency jump if needed." The battle raged for hours, neither side gaining a clear advantage. This was typical of their encounters: costly, brutal, and ultimately inconclusive. The war had evolved into a complex dance of attack and retreat, with territorial gains measured in astronomical units and casualties counted in millions. As the Melvarian fleet began to fall back, Kim received an urgent communication from their long-range scout vessels. "Commander, we've detected unusual activity in Sector 9, the scout reported. "The primitive planet with the bipeds. They've developed faster than light travel, much sooner than our projections suggested." Kim frowned. "How is that possible?" "Our last assessment indicated they were at least 3 centuries from achieving space-folding technology." "Unknown, sir, but they've launched a vessel that's already left their solar system." Kim dismissed the report with a wave. "Flag it for the Cultural Observation Division. We have more pressing concerns." The scout hesitated. "Sir, there's something else. The human vessel. It's using a propulsion method we've never seen before." For the first time in centuries, something other than the war caught Kim's attention. "Explain." They're not bending space or creating wormholes. They're somehow sliding between dimensional planes. Our analysts can't make sense of it. On the Xorathi command ship, General Lee received similar reports. He too dismissed them as a curiosity. The humans will either become useful allies or easy conquests, he told his officers. Either way, they're irrelevant to our current campaign. Neither commander could have known how wrong they were. The war continued its relentless cycle. Planets fell. Civilizations crumbled. Species evolved, reached for the stars, and found only the ashes of those who had come before them, caught in the crossfire of a conflict older than their sun. Years passed, then decades. The human vessel made contact with refugees from a battle-scarred system. They learned of the war that had shaped the galaxy for nearly 1,000,000 years. In a secret meeting room on Earth, the leaders of humanity gathered to discuss what they had learned. "We cannot let this continue," said one leader. "If these aliens bring their war to our doorstep, we will not survive." Another nodded. "But what can we do against civilizations so advanced? Their technology must be beyond our comprehension." "Perhaps," said a third, "but they've been fighting so long they've stopped innovating. They've been locked in stalemate for millennia. Maybe fresh eyes can see what they cannot." They made their decision. Earth would prepare, not just to defend itself, but to end the oldest war in galactic history. Neither the Xorathi nor the Melvarians noticed as human ships began appearing at the edges of their territories, observing, learning, planning. By the time they recognized the potential threat, it was already too late. Humanity was coming, and everything was about to change. "All systems operational," Captain Han reported Navigation Officer Choi as the Earth's first true interstellar vessel, the USS Pioneer, prepared to activate its experimental warp drive. Captain Han took a deep breath. Initiate jump sequence. What should have been humanity's grand entrance onto the galactic stage instead became a desperate rescue mission when the Pioneer emerged from warp space amid the debris of a recent battle. The crew discovered a damaged escape pod containing survivors from both warring factions. This chance encounter accelerated humanity's development beyond all projections. Within 50 years, Earth had unified under the United Space Systems, developing technologies that combined human innovation with concepts gleaned from their reluctant alien guests. Admiral Kang stood proudly on the bridge of the USS Stardestroyer, humanity's first true warship. Unlike the vessels of either alien coalition, the Stardestroyer was built not for conquest, but for intervention. "Our mission is clear," she told her crew during the maiden voyage briefing. 800,000 years of senseless destruction ends today. The light from the stars stretched into long streaks as the USS Pioneer made its historic jump. Captain Han felt his stomach lurch, but his face remained calm. This was the moment humanity had worked toward for decades. The first human-made ship to travel faster than light. "Jump complete," Choi announced. His voice wavered slightly. "But sir, something's wrong." Han looked at the main view screen. Instead of empty space, they faced a vast field of debris. Twisted metal, shattered ships, bodies floating in the vacuum. "Scan for life signs," Han ordered, "and get us to yellow alert." The crew moved with practiced efficiency despite their shock. They had trained for first contact, for diplomatic missions, for scientific discovery. They had not trained for this, the aftermath of what could only be described as a massacre. "Sir, we're detecting a faint distress signal," reported Communications Officer Ju. "It's coming from a small object about 3 kilometers to port." "Take us in, slow approach," Han commanded. "Weapons on standby." As they neared the source of the signal, the object became clear, an escape pod, badly damaged but somehow intact. Its design was unlike anything in human records. "Life signs?" Han asked. The science officer nodded. 4 beings. Their biology is not in our database. Han stood from his chair. "Prepare the medical bay. We're bringing them aboard." The rescue operation was delicate. The alien pod systems were failing, and its occupants were badly injured. When the medical team finally cut through the hatch, they found themselves face to face with beings from two distinct species. Two had smooth, silvery skin and six-fingered hands. The other two were darker, with angled features and eyes that seemed to glow from within. They were enemies, separated in their escape pod by a makeshift barrier that had been constructed from debris. Despite their injuries, the aliens tried to attack each other when brought aboard. It took 3 human medics to restrain each alien. "They're trying to kill each other," the chief medical officer reported to Han. "Even though they're both dying." Han made a decision that would change the course of human history. Sedate them all. Save their lives whether they want us to or not. Over the following weeks, as the Pioneer limped home with its unprecedented cargo, the aliens slowly recovered. With great difficulty, the human linguists established basic communication. The aliens were stunned to learn that humans had developed warp technology independently, using principles neither of their advanced civilizations had discovered. "Your method of travel," one Melvarian named Jun explained through the translator. "It should not be possible." The Torethi survivor, who called himself Su, agreed. "Your species has found a path between realities that our scientists declared impossible millennia ago." When asked about their war, both aliens fell silent. Eventually, Jun spoke. "It has always been. It will always be." Back on Earth, the revelation that humanity had stumbled into an ancient galactic war changed everything. Nations that had been enemies for centuries now found common cause. The threat of alien conflict accelerated global unification. Within 10 years, Earth had unified under the United Space Systems. The aliens, once recovered, were given a choice: return to their people or remain as advisors. Surprisingly, all 4 chose to stay. "Your world is the first place in my lifetime where I have not had to fight," Su explained to the U.S. Council. "I would rather help you prepare than return to endless war." Human scientists worked alongside their alien guests, combining Earth's fresh perspectives with the advanced knowledge of species that had been spacefaring for eons. Progress was astonishing. 40 years after the Pioneer's fateful mission, Admiral Kang reviewed the final specs for humanity's new flagship. The USS Stardestroyer wasn't just a warship. It was humanity's answer to the galactic conflict. "The Harmony drive is online and stable," reported Chief Engineer Min. "All tests show it can disrupt energy weapons across a 50,000-kilometer radius." Kang nodded as she walked the gleaming corridors of the ship. Unlike the angular Xorothy vessels or the smooth Melvarian cruisers, the Star Destroyer combined elements of both with uniquely human innovations. Its primary weapon wasn't designed to destroy, but to render all other weapons useless. The ship could create a field that temporarily altered certain physical constants, making energy weapons discharge harmlessly. "Will it work against both factions?" Kang asked Jun and Su, who had become valued advisors despite their continued mutual distrust. "In theory," Jun replied, "but neither the Melvarian Compact nor the Xorothy Alliance will take you seriously. They will see humans as children playing with dangerous toys." Su nodded in rare agreement. "They will ignore your warnings. They will continue fighting until you force them to stop." Kang gathered her senior officers in the ship's briefing room the night before launch. Men and women who represented the best of humanity, chosen for their skills, but also for their commitment to peace. "Tomorrow we depart on the most important mission in human history," she told them. "Not for conquest, not for glory, but because sometimes the youngest child in the room is the only one brave enough to tell the adults they're being foolish." Her officers nodded, determination in their eyes. "Our mission is clear," she concluded. 800,000 years of senseless destruction ends today. The Star Destroyer dropped out of hyperspace at the fringes of the Proxima Centauri system, where a major Xorothy Melvarian battle was underway. Countless ships from both sides filled the void, weapons flashing like artificial stars. "Open all communication channels," ordered Admiral Kang. "Broadcast in all known frequencies." Communications Officer Song adjusted his equipment. Broadcasting now, Admiral. Kang's message was simple. This is Admiral Kang of the USS Stardestroyer. We demand an immediate cessation of hostilities. Representatives of both factions will board our vessel for peace negotiations within 30 minutes, or we will be forced to demonstrate humanity's resolve. The response was predictable. Both sides ignored what they considered a primitive species' foolish bravado. Their war had raged before humans had even mastered fire. What could these newcomers possibly do? They've dismissed our ultimatum, reported Song. Admiral Kang nodded solemnly. Then we proceed with Phase 2. Activate the Harmony Drive. The ship's experimental core hummed to life, generating a field that no alien scientist had believed possible, a localized disruption of certain physical constants that rendered conventional energy weapons useless. The Star Destroyer moved slowly toward the heart of the battle. On the bridge, the crew watched in silence as the massive alien fleets continued their deadly dance. Beams of energy crisscrossed space. Missiles left trails of light as they sought their targets. Explosions bloomed like silent flowers as ships were hit. We are now entering effective range for the Harmony Drive, reported Science Officer Gill. His voice was steady, but his hands trembled slightly. Field generators at maximum capacity. Kang stood from her command chair. Begin recording all sensor data. The U.S. Council will want complete documentation of what happens next. On the Melvarian command ship, Admiral June was directing the battle when a junior officer approached. Admiral, our scanners show a small vessel approaching the combat zone. It appears to be of human design. June barely glanced at the report, warned them to leave the area. If they refuse, ignore them. We have more important concerns. The officer hesitated. Sir, they're broadcasting some kind of ultimatum. Humans? June laughed. What could they possibly threaten us with? Their most advanced ships are children's toys compared to our oldest vessels. Across the battlefield, Sorethi Commander Hack received similar reports. Let them watch, he told his officers. Perhaps witnessing real warfare will teach them humility. Neither alien commander paid attention as the Star Destroyer reached its designated position. Neither noticed as the human vessel's unusual drive system began to pulse with increasing intensity. Harmony Drive now at full power, Jill announced. Field extending. Kang nodded. Activate. At first, nothing seemed to happen. Then, a Melvarian cruiser fired at a Sorethi destroyer, and the energy beam simply dissipated halfway to its target, like water evaporating in desert heat. Confusion spread through both fleets. Weapons officers frantically recalibrated their systems. Commanders demanded explanations. And still, nothing worked. Energy weapons fired but faded before reaching their targets. Missile guidance systems failed, sending the projectiles spinning uselessly into space. Even the massive planet-killer cannons of the largest battleships produced nothing more than brief flashes of light. The Harmony field is stable, Jill reported with growing excitement. All enemy weapons in range have been neutralized. On the Melvarian flagship, Admiral June stared at his useless displays in disbelief. What is happening? He demanded. Why have our weapons failed? His science officer looked up from her station, face pale. It's the human ship, Admiral. They're generating some kind of field that's altering the constants that allow our energy weapons to function. Impossible. Jum slammed his fist on his command console. No species has ever managed to manipulate physical constants on this scale. The Sorethi were experiencing the same disbelief. Commander Hack ordered his most powerful battleship to target the human vessel directly. Full power to the main cannon, he commanded. Destroy that ship. The massive Sorethi weapon charge, drawing enough energy to vaporize a small moon. When it fired, the beam extended just 50 meters from the barrel before dissolving into harmless particles. On the Star Destroyer, Song reported, Admiral, we're receiving communication requests from both fleets. Ignore them, Kang replied calmly. Send out drone ships Alpha through Delta. 4 small, unmanned vessels launched from the Stardestroyer's bay. They moved with impossible speed, evading the clumsy attempts to intercept them. Each drone attached itself to a target, two to the main command ships of each faction. "Drones in position," reported Tactical Officer 1. "Systems linked." Kang activated her communication channel again. "Attention, Harathi and Nulvarian forces. As you have now observed, we have neutralized your weapons. Our drone ships are now attached to your command vessels. They carry devices that can extend our field effect throughout this sector." She paused to let her words sink in. "This technology can be deployed on a galactic scale. We can render the weapons of both your civilizations permanently useless. The war ends today." On both command ships, the alien leaders were facing something they had never experienced before, a complete shift in power. For 800 millennia, the Xorithi and Nulvarians had been the undisputed masters of the galaxy. Now, in less than 10 minutes, a species younger than many of their minor technological advances had neutralized them both. "This is a bluff," Jun insisted to his officers. "No species could develop such technology so quickly." But doubt had crept into his voice. Commander Hack was more pragmatic. "If they can do this to our weapons, what else might they be capable of?" Kang waited patiently as the alien commanders debated their options. She had studied their psychology for years, with the help of Jun and Su. She knew that 800,000 years of war had made them stubborn, but not stupid. "Admiral," Song reported, "the Xorithi commander is requesting direct communication." "Put him through," Kang replied. Commander Hack's angular face appeared on the view screen. "Human, you have made your point. What do you want?" "Peace talks," Kang answered simply. "Both you and Admiral Jun will board the Stardestroyer for negotiations." Hack's glowing eyes narrowed. "And if we refuse?" "Then we will extend the harmony field throughout your territories. Your civilizations will be defenseless, against each other and against any other threat that might arise." The threat wasn't lost on either commander. Without their weapons, the carefully maintained balance of power would collapse. Chaos would follow. Within 20 minutes, both alien leaders had agreed to board the human vessel. For the first time in 800,000 years, the leaders of the Xorithi Alliance and the Melvarian Compact would sit at the same table. "They're coming," Song announced with a note of awe in his voice. Kang looked around at her crew, humans who had taken on the oldest war in the galaxy and forced it to pause. "The hard part begins now," she told them. "Fighting is easy. Making peace is much more difficult." As the alien shuttles approached the Stardestroyer, Kang prepared to welcome the commanders of civilizations older than human history. 800,000 years of war were about to meet humanity's stubborn hope for peace. 0 o'clock. The Stardestroyer positioned itself between the warring fleets, its harmony drive activating. Lieutenant Bai checked the chronometer on his wrist. The mission clock had started. Every second for the next hour would be recorded in detail for Earth's archives. He stood at his station on the bridge, watching history unfold. "Harmony drive at full capacity," reported Engineer Gill. "Field extending now." The view screen showed the impossible sight. Hundreds of alien warships frozen in combat, their weapons suddenly disabled. Some continued to fire, creating brief flashes that died almost instantly as the energy dissipated against the harmony field. Admiral Kang remained calm in her command chair. "Begin countdown protocol." 5:12. Confusion spread through both fleets as weapon systems failed. "We're intercepting their communications," Song announced. "They're in complete disarray. Both sides are accusing each other of deploying some new weapon." Bai watched the alien ships on the tactical display. Some were trying to retreat. Others were moving closer to inspect their disabled weapons. A few smaller vessels approached the Stardestroyer cautiously. "Should we be concerned about ramming attacks?" asked Tactical Officer 1. Kang shook her head. "They value their ships too much. Besides, our point defense systems still function. They know we could destroy any ship that comes too close." Ba made careful notes. The alien commanders were reacting exactly as their human advisors had predicted. First disbelief, then anger, then cautious probing. 9:37. The Stardestroyer launched unmanned drones that attached to the command vessels of both factions. "Drone ships away," announced one. "Tracking normal." The 4 unmanned vessels shot from the Stardestroyer's launch bays. They were small, fast, and nearly impossible to track with conventional sensors. Each carried a miniature version of the Harmony drive. On the view screen, Bai watched as the drones expertly navigated through the chaos of the battlefield. Alien ships tried to intercept them, but moved too slowly. Within minutes, each drone had attached itself to its target, the massive command ships of both fleets. "Drones successfully attached and powered," Jill confirmed. "Secondary Harmony fields active." Kang nodded. "Now they can't simply destroy their own command ships to eliminate our advantage. The field would remain." 14:58. Admiral Kang delivered her second message. "Your weapons are temporarily neutralized. This technology can be deployed on a galactic scale. The war ends today." Kang stood before the communications array. Her uniform was crisp, her expression determined. Bai thought she looked exactly like someone who was about to end an 800,000-year war should look. "Attention, commanders of the Xtorathi Alliance and Nelvarian Compact," she began. "You have now witnessed a small demonstration of human technology. Your weapons are temporarily neutralized. This is not an attack. It is an intervention." She paused, letting her words sink in. "Our drone ships are now attached to your command vessels. They carry devices that can extend our field effect throughout this sector. This technology can be deployed on a galactic scale." Another pause. Bai held his breath. "The war ends today. You will both send representatives to the Stardestroyer within the next 15 minutes to begin peace negotiations. If you refuse, we will extend the Harmony field to all your territories. Your civilizations will be defenseless, against each other and against any other threats." The response was immediate. Both alien fleets erupted in frantic communications. "They're discussing whether we're bluffing," Song reported, listening through his headset. "Neither side believes we could actually extend the field that far." Kang smiled slightly. "Engineer Gil, prepare a demonstration." Gil nodded and adjusted several controls. One of the drones attached to a Xtorathi ship pulsed with light. Suddenly, the Harmony field expanded, encompassing 3 nearby star systems. All weapons in those systems went dead instantly. "I think they'll believe us now," Kang said quietly. 22:43. The Xtorathi Supreme Commander Moon reluctantly agreed to board the human vessel. "Incoming transmission from the Xtorathi command ship," Song announced. The view screen changed to show Commander Moon's face. His angular features were set in a grim expression. His glowing eyes narrowed. "Human," he said, his translated voice deep and resonant. "You have made your point. I will come to your ship." Kang nodded. "We await your arrival, Commander." As the communication ended, Bai noted the historic moment in his log. For the first time in recorded history, a Xtorathi Supreme Commander had agreed to negotiate directly with an enemy. 28:19. Melvarian High Strategist Yoon followed suit, refusing to allow her enemy any diplomatic advantage. "The Melvarian commander is hailing us," Song reported. High Strategist Yoon appeared on screen. Her silvery skin gleamed under the lights of her command center. "Admiral Kang, I will not allow the Xtorathi to gain advantage in these talks. I too will board your vessel." "We look forward to your arrival," Kang replied smoothly. "Both parties will be treated with equal respect." As the communication ended, one leaned toward Ba. "They're both coming because neither wants the other to have exclusive access to our technology." Bai nodded. 800,000 years of war creates deep mistrust. 35:44. Both alien leaders were shocked to discover the simplicity of humanity's peace proposal. The conference room on the Stardestroyer was deliberately simple. A round table, comfortable chairs, no weapons or guards, they weren't needed with the Harmony drive active. Commander Moon and Strategist Yoon sat on opposite sides, their postures rigid with centuries of hatred. Neither would look directly at the other. Admiral Kang placed a single document on the table. This is our proposal. It consists of 3 points. Both alien leaders looked skeptical. First, Kang continued, an immediate cessation of all hostilities. Second, the establishment of a neutral zone between your territories, to be monitored by human peacekeepers. Third, regular meetings between representatives of both factions to address grievances without warfare. Moon stared at the document. That's it. 3 points. This is insulting, Yoon added. Our conflict spans millennia. It involves complex philosophical differences, territorial disputes, resource allocation, none of which has been resolved in 800,000 years of fighting, Kang interrupted. We're not trying to solve all your problems. We're simply stopping the killing. 42-7. Initial treaties were drafted. The ceasefire will begin immediately upon your signatures, Kang explained, as both alien leaders reviewed the documents. Moon looked up. And if we sign this, you'll deactivate your Harmony field. In stages, Kang replied. As trust is built, the field will be reduced. Yoon's expression was calculating. What prevents us from simply rebuilding our weapons once the field is gone? Nothing, Kang admitted, except the knowledge that we can reactivate it at any time. Bai watched as the alien leaders considered their options. He could almost see the calculations happening behind their eyes, the weighing of pride against practicality, of ancient hatreds against future survival. 48-33. Ceasefire orders transmitted to all forces across the galaxy. The documents are signed. Song announced over the ship-wide communication system. Throughout the Stardestroyer, the human crew paused in their duties. This was the moment they had trained for, hoped for, but never quite believed would happen. On the bridge, Bai watched as both alien leaders transmitted the ceasefire orders to their fleets. The messages went out on all frequencies, carried by faster-than-light communications to every corner of the galaxy where their forces fought. Stop all offensive operations. Stand down all weapons systems. Hold current positions and await further orders. Simple phrases that ended countless battles, saved millions of lives in an instant. 50 o'clock. For the first time in 800,000 years, the weapons of the galaxy fell silent. The chronometer on Bai's wrist beeped softly. 50 minutes exactly since the mission began. On the tactical display, the alien fleets had stopped moving. No weapons fired. No ships exploded. The stillness was almost eerie after the constant movement of battle. Confirmation coming in from our monitoring stations, Song reported, his voice hushed with awe. Fighting has stopped in all observed sectors. Admiral Kang looked around at her crew, her expression solemn. Log it, Lieutenant Ba. At this moment, the longest war in galactic history ended. Bai entered the final note in his record. History would remember this day. 50 minutes that changed the fate of countless worlds. 50 minutes that accomplished what 800 millennia of war could not. And it had been humans, newcomers to the galactic stage, who had made it happen. What now, Admiral? Bai asked quietly. Kang's expression softened slightly. Now comes the hard part. Making sure the peace lasts. 1 year after the 50-minute peace, representatives from over 10,000 worlds gathered at Earth's newly constructed orbital station to formalize the Terran Accord. We mediated peace not because we were stronger, President Zhou explained to the assembled dignitaries, but because we were outside your conflict. Sometimes fresh eyes see what ancient wisdom cannot. The irony was not lost on anyone. Humans, the youngest spacefaring species in the known galaxy, had ended a war that predated their evolution from primates. The treaty created a new galactic governance system with Earth serving as neutral ground, a role that humans embraced with unexpected skill. It's almost absurd, Mediator Shin remarked to a colleague as they watched the signing ceremony. Their entire civilization is less than 10,000 years old. My great-grandfather witnessed their first use of metal tools. Her colleague, Ambassador Ryu of the former Melvarian worlds, smiled thoughtfully. Perhaps that's precisely why they succeeded where we failed. They haven't had time to forget what peace looks like. As the formalities concluded, Admiral Kang stood at the observation deck of the Stardestroyer, watching the representatives return to their worlds. She thought about the billions who had died in the long war and the trillions who would now live because of humanity's intervention. Sometimes the newest voice speaks the wisest words. Sometimes the smallest hand can move the largest mountain. And sometimes 800,000 years of galactic war can end in just 50 minutes. The great hall of the Earth orbital station gleamed under soft lights. Beings from 10,000 worlds filled the room, their diverse forms creating a living tapestry of galactic life. Some floated in special atmosphere bubbles. Others moved on many legs or no legs at all. Yet all were equal here, in this place built by the galaxy's youngest spacefaring species. Admiral Kang stood near the central platform where President Joe would soon speak. Her dress uniform felt stiff after a year spent mostly in more comfortable standard duty attire. But today was special. Today, they would formalize what had begun with those 50 historic minutes. Nervous? Asked Captain Gill, now her second-in-command on the Stardestroyer. Kang shook her head. Reflective. Did you ever imagine we would be here when we first launched? Honestly, I thought we'd either change everything or die trying. A soft tone signaled the beginning of the ceremony. The assembled delegates fell silent as President Joe took the central platform. She was not a tall woman, but her presence commanded the attention of beings who had lived for centuries. Distinguished representatives of the galaxy, Joe began, her voice carried by translators to every ear. 1 year ago, the longest war in recorded history ended. Today, we formalize that peace. Kang watched the faces of the Xorithi and Melvarian delegations. Their ancient hatred had not vanished, but it had cooled. Over the past year, small steps had been taken. Trade routes reopened. Diplomatic channels established. Former enemies had begun the long process of learning to coexist. Humanity did not create this peace because we were stronger or wiser than any of you, Joe continued. We succeeded where others failed because we were outside your conflict. Sometimes fresh eyes see what ancient wisdom cannot. A ripple of movement passed through the audience, the equivalent of nodding from species with very different anatomies. The Terran Accord we signed today establishes more than just a ceasefire. It creates a framework for cooperation, for mediation, for preventing future conflicts before they begin. As Joe spoke, Kang's gaze drifted to the massive viewports that showed Earth below. The blue-green planet seemed so small from here, so fragile. Yet from this world had come the solution to a war that had consumed countless others. After the formal speech, the delegates broke into smaller groups. Kang found herself approached by mediator Shin, a respected diplomat who had helped draft the final version of the accord. Admiral. Shin greeted her warmly. This day belongs to you as much as anyone. Without the Stardestroyer's intervention, we would not be here. Kang smiled. I just followed orders. The real credit belongs to everyone who believed peace was possible. They watched as delegates from worlds that had been bitter enemies for millennia now engaged in cautious conversation. It's almost absurd, Shin remarked to Kang as they observed the signing ceremony. Look at them. The Xorithi delegation, their civilization is millions of years old. My great-grandfather witnessed the first time humans used metal tools. And yet here we are, hosting them. Ambassador Ryu of the former Melvarian worlds joined our conversation. Perhaps that's precisely why you succeeded where we failed. You haven't had time to forget what peace looks like. Kang considered this. Is that it? We just haven't been fighting long enough to forget how to stop. Not exactly, Ryu said. But when you've been at war for 800,000 years, peace becomes theoretical. A concept studied in history books rather than a lived reality. The signing ceremony proceeded with each delegation approaching the central table. The Horathi and Melvarian representatives signed last, their hands steady as they formalized the end of their ancient conflict. Later, as the delegates prepared to return to their worlds, Kang stood alone on the observation deck of the Stardestroyer, which was docked at the station. The ship had become a symbol across the galaxy, not of human aggression, but of unexpected wisdom. She thought about the reports she had read during the past year, worlds being rebuilt, species returning to planets they had abandoned generations ago, children born who would never know the fear of planetary bombardment. Admiral, it was Gil again. The President is asking for you. There's to be a final toast before everyone departs. Kang nodded and took one last look at the stars. She thought about the billions who had died in the Long War and the trillions who would now live because of humanity's intervention. You know, Jill said, following her gaze, when I was a child, I used to think the stars were watching us. Now I realize we were watching them all along, waiting for our moment. Kang smiled. And what a moment it was. As they walked back to join the celebration, Kang reflected on the strange path that had brought humanity to this point. From a primitive species on a small blue planet to the peacekeepers of the galaxy in less than a century. Sometimes the newest voice speaks the wisest words. Sometimes the smallest hand can move the largest mountain. And sometimes 800,000 years of galactic war can end in just 50 minutes. The end